Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, as always, joined by Mr. David Francisco. David, how are you doing today?
Good.
That's good to hear. On this wonderful December the 9th, which is the day that we're recording this. Incidentally enough, we're recording this the day before everyone's expecting major news to break out of the Disney investor call. But hey, I'm getting the suspicion that this may be the only time we get to record a podcast this week, considering everybody's schedules are so tight. So I apologize to the audience in advance that we'll be covering whatever news Disney has for Disney Plus the following day until the next podcast or whenever we get to it. But we have a lot of news already to talk about just in the last week that's happened. And welcome. This is episode 281. The podcast where we talk about the movies and the business of the movies. And if you've, I don't know, have Twitter, you can definitely see. And if you follow some, film Twitter people, then you've been seeing that there's been quite a lot of conversation around the recent earth-shattering decision that Warner Media made in terms of releasing the entire Warner Brothers movie studio slate of the following 2021 calendar year onto the streaming service HBO Max. We had a whole episode breaking that down last week with Alexis Moreno, who was so I'm so grateful to, and so are we, for being able to step in for Peter Martinez. As I've been saying, he's been unavailable to record in recent weeks because his living situation has been a little topsy-turvy, and has not been in the capacity to be able to record. But do keep in mind, of course, he has plenty of thoughts. I'll be able, in the course of this episode, to communicate some of those. Of course, he will come back in time to talk about how he feels about all of this, as well as I've been teasing for a couple of weeks now, the remainder of our Guillermo del Toro series, which we still have yet to conclude, as well as upcoming reviews like Mank, the David Fincher film, which is currently on Netflix. And interestingly enough, the discourse around that movie has been overshadowed completely by what's going on with HBO Max. So that's going to be interesting whenever we get the chance to actually do that. And I've just thanked the audience for being patient with us. Of course, we don't have the resources as everybody else does. We're a small rundown podcast with no budget whatsoever. But hey, here we are. We're doing it because we love to talk about this. And there is so much to talk about today. We're going to get David's thoughts, of course, on this decision by Warner Media to release all the movies on HBO Max. Then we're going to cover all of the tea. We don't really have any tea, but all of the spicy stuff that's been going on with literally the entire orbit of Warner Brothers, their talent, their, all of their partners in this business have seemingly have gone on the record pretty much disavowing and pissed off, quite frankly, at this decision. We'll also talk about Spider-Man 3, which is currently filming, but a lot of the news surrounding Spider-Man 3 lately has been which latest superhero is going to be in the movie this time, and the multiverse is here, and we're going to be talking about how we feel about what's been confirmed so far, what's also, been in, I guess, the conversation of who's left to be confirmed. And then we'll close the show with The Mandalorian, which is, I'm sure, something that is keeping everybody happy. And I'm all for people being happy, especially in a year where we've been deprived of literally that very thing. Fair warning, though, we have... This podcast gets a bad rap sometimes, and I mean a bad rap by its own panelists as raining on the parade. But I'm sorry, we have some feelings, and we just have to talk about where The Mandalorian and where Star Wars is right now, quite frankly. And how aggravated some of us have been. Just reading people's thoughts to no end, I should say. So yeah, that's going to be our show today, David. We catch up real quick for a sec before we get into all of this stuff. I haven't spoken to you, and I don't know. I do so many shows, I forget. I lose track of when was the last time I've spoken to this person or when we did a show last. I think the last thing we did was The Good Place, which was, God, that feels like 1,000 years ago at this point, considering how much has happened.
Oh my god! I look back at our YouTube videos, and like I see Legend of Korra was like 3 months ago, and I'm like, are you serious? Feels like last year.
No, you're correct. That's exactly how it feels. And yeah, we're just so ancient and decrepit at this point, considering how this year has thoroughly aged us quite so. But yeah, so how are you?
I'm good. It's finals week, so that's kind of stressful. But
oh gosh, yeah, that's never fun.
But I've been distracted.
In a good way?
Yes.
Good.
I haven't actually watched that many shows. I need to catch up on stuff, but I've been doing a lot of reading.
Good. What are you reading?
One that I finished a few days ago. Hold up. I got it right here. Ready Player 2.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard much chatter on it, but I hear people are very like polarized on like one way or the other of like loving it or hating it.
Yeah, I love it.
Good for you.
It's I will say the first one is still better. It's just more of like I don't know. In a way, the first one is just kind of special. Like it has that like little bit of a lightning in the bottle type of effect. Like there's no way you can make the second one better. The kind of thing. But I really like where he took this book. He really showed a different side of all the characters. He showed more of the characters from the last book. And yeah, it's just still fun. It was a cool quest. It was cool references. But yeah, I loved it.
Good. Anything else? You said you finished a Kyoshi book, right?
Yeah, I finished the Rise of Kyoshi. I started
Avatar Kyoshi from the Avatar series, in case you weren't aware.
Yeah, and that one again, really, really good. We've always seen on the internet like Kyoshi being like super, super badass, like just a killing machine almost. But like the book, it's really nothing like that. She wants to be tame. She doesn't want to really hurt a lot of people or anything like that. And just the way they kind of went from going from like a PG cartoon show to this like PG-13, almost rated R type of
really
story on it. It was really, really interesting. And even though it takes place like hundreds of years before Aang, like it's still really cool that they can come up with new ways of bending.
And
really,
even in the books.
And then I think I told you, but I don't remember. But like one thing again, they still even going doing a prequel, they still expanded the world. So like one thing, slight spoiler. So in the show, they said that they figured out Aang was the Avatar because he chose 4 toys out of hundreds, and those 4 toys were from his past avatars. But that's the only way air nomads figure out who the Avatar is in their nation. Whereas since Kyoshi is an Earthbender, the Earth Kingdom does something different, which is like, if you remember the episode where they look at the old lady that can see the future or something, or like tell their fortunes, they sort of get people like that and like do some little voodoo stuff. And what they do is break down the Earth Kingdom map. So like they cut it in half, and then the bones or whatever tells them like it's going to be on this side, and then they just keep cutting in half more and more until they find a location. And and usually it works on the first try, but for some reason with Kyoshi it didn't work. But yeah, again, super interesting. I really like Kyoshi as a character. Her she has a girlfriend in the book, and I liked the way they're brought up and how they work together in it. I started a bit on the next one. What is it? The Shadow of Kyoshi. But I got distracted because I bought other books.
Right.
I got like the box set of the Percy Jackson books, the Heroes of Olympus books, and now I have what is it? The Trials of Apollo.
You're never gonna finish all that. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like maybe you will at one point, but it's like that's not necessarily helping you finish one thing when you have so much else left on the plate. I know for me, I really would have loved to have continued reading the Thrawn trilogy, the new one, with Thrawn Alliances and then Thrawn. I forgot what the last one was. I think that's at least a trilogy now, but I still haven't finished the first one. And what's so weird about it is that like I didn't finish it not because I wasn't enjoying it. I was loving that novel, but things happen, and books are so hard to stick with.
Oh, I know.
Like, especially since and then it's been so long. Like I haven't read it since 2017, and so like I don't remember where exactly I left off, and it just becomes a hassle to get back into it.
Yeah,
but I still have the book, damn it, and it was great, and I'm sure the other ones were good too, based on everything I hear. But no, books are really special. It's just a really nice, intimate medium that it's its own thing, and to me, like you just get to know a character so much more from that than practically any other medium, really. Like the same thing with the Dark Disciple novel, which I would argue people would consider like it is canon. I mean, it did happen in the canon of the Star Wars universe or whatever. But like it's just something that's not talked about enough because it was the final which is a shame because it is the final entry of the Asajj Ventress story arc, which was a huge part of that television show. But at the same time, the advantages of a novel, you really do get in her headspace and the character's headspace a lot more. There's more time for, retrospect and just thought that you don't necessarily have in a 22-minute episode, if that, of a television series. And so like I've always been interested how like when we talk about franchises across different mediums, how in some ways the smaller you go, and it depends on who you are entirely, the more intimate it becomes. Like I feel like television is somehow more intimate than film.
No, for sure.
And then of course you have the book. So like, I'm glad that you're having a good time with that. And I'm also happy, and I hope that the books that you're reading are successful when it comes to the Avatar, because I want that franchise to keep being popular, and I hope that there are more Avatar projects of the like to come.
Yeah, no, and I have trouble with that too. Like trying to just read books, actually read them, but you just hit a wall at some point. You're just like, I can't with words. And
yeah.
But what really, really helped me though was getting into audiobooks. It's actually...
Oh, dude, yes. I know some people might be like, wow, you guys are like normies or whatever. Like, you really need to be talked to like pay attention. Fuck off. No, audiobooks are really good.
Yes.
Especially since like we're podcasters, right? And so we listen to podcasts. And like to me, an audiobook is kind of like listening to a podcast. I'll tell you what, there was a project I had at university, I think 2 years ago, for this person's biography that I had to basically do a presentation on, and I was like, I ain't reading a book, I'll just listen to it. And that's how I got through it.
No, yeah, and it's actually been like officially a year since I started listening to audiobooks, and I've listened to 17 audiobooks.
Wow.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just like at one point, either when you're reading it or listening to it, there's a certain point in the book where you just like, bam, it just hits your imagination, it grabs your attention, you care about these characters, and like you just want to like and I just wanted to read more books, and that's kind of what helped me get through Ready Player 2. I finished this book in 4 days, and then the first book of the Trials of Apollo, I finished that in 3 just yesterday. And so, that really helps me kind of like just keep going with the books and all that. And what was it? Oh, one more book. Right now I'm currently listening to the King Killer Chronicles. I'm on the second book, The Wise Man's Fear. It's so fucking good. It's just the audiobook, but the guy, the narrator though, like he is amazing. Like he's really acting out.
You need a good narrator.
For sure.
A good narrator for those audiobooks, yeah.
I listened to a sample of the Kiyoshi books just to kind of be like, oh, maybe I can use it. Why not? But I listened to it. Oof, no, it's not. It's just like no effort in actually like acting out the book or anything like that. Ugh, it wasn't great. Yeah, but the one for King Killer Chronicles, he's amazing. Just I can literally like imagine these characters through his voice and everything. But the book itself, though, the first book, The Name of the Wind, it got tons and tons of praise for its world building, and I 100% agree. The world itself, it's like its currencies, the magic. It's like part magic, part science, and all that. Just the details that they go into, and the character Kvolth and Denna. Those two, Denna's like the love interest, I guess, of the book. And I have never been so invested in a relationship before in like anything.
Yeah.
And just like whenever they're together, I'm just like, oh god, what's gonna happen next? Like, is something gonna work out? Are they gonna break up?
Pins and needles.
Yes. It's just I've like honestly like, I love the Eleanor and Chidi's relationship in The Good Place. I was
Fitzsimmons.
Fitz and Simmons for sure. Like I just want him to work out. But this one though, it keeps me on the edge of my seat because I don't know what's going to happen with them. Like I knew with Fitzsimmons, I knew with Fitzsimmons they're going to be together. Like it's
the end. You see and eventually you know where this is going to end up. But you're describing the relationship in this novel or in this book, I should say, that it is so unpredictable, and you want this ship to succeed, and ever so. I'll tell you this though, I'm sure you'll be far more successful than Kyle Lira. Kyle Lira has, our good friend Kyle, of course, the creator of this podcast, long since I've known him, he has been obsessed with shipping characters on television shows and movies. And the hilarious thing with him is that he rarely ever gets his way. And he'll make it a point to you to like, I guess the one that succeeded the most, although like apparently there's a lot of disagreements about how the Doctor Who community feels about Clara and 12. Like Kyle, like adamant that was a sexual relationship. And I'm like, I don't think that's what it was. I think it was something much more mature than that. Yeah. That's where I feel. But, that's... he literally wrote fan fiction.
No.
It's on Tumblr.
No. Clara and the 12th Doctor, I saw that as like some father-daughter relationship. I'm sorry. No. Like I literally thought you were gonna say David Tennant and what's her name, Rose. Yeah, I thought that's what you were gonna mention and say like, no, technically they got together, only it's a clone of the Doctor. It's like it's close enough for the fans, I guess. I thought that's what you were gonna say, but Clara and the 12th Doctor.
But apparently he's not alone in that. Apparently there's a subsect of the Doctor Who universe that happens to go along with that. I can certainly ask if Kyle will give you the link to his fan fiction. Apparently it's quite extensive.
Wow.
That shouldn't surprise you if you know Kyle. That really shouldn't surprise you. But yeah. What were we talking about?
I was just bringing up my book collection.
Right.
But yeah, I've been very much into books. I'm honestly really proud of myself. Just how much books I've
Good.
gone
Yeah,
and
yeah. I'm happy.
how many I've read.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, with me, it's been a collection of YouTube, movies, and TV. So I'll go through it real quick with what I've been. So since we're on the Doctor Who thing, it completely went over my head, and apparently as did Kyle and you. We're all Whovians here. It completely went over my head that they had done a YouTube series of like they're low budget, but audio recordings of certain Doctor Who legacy characters in a lockdown series. Like, so for when the lockdown first happened, they did like a whole bunch of stuff with certain cast members and characters. And so the one that I shared with you was with Bill Potts and with Nardole from Series 10 of Doctor Who, which I only just recently finished watching, in fact. So yeah, I finished, I think it was about a couple weeks back, the Series 10 finale. Very emotional, obviously. And yet on the heels of that, this was actually something really special and something kind of perfect. I don't know if you listened to it, but it was so clever and beautiful too. It was written by Stephen Moffat. Murray Gold even came back and scored it. And then of course you had Pearl Mackie and Matt Lucas who, lend their voice for their characters. And it was a wonderful kind of epilogue for those characters after the events of The Doctor Falls. It took place with Nardole still on the ship that's hurling toward the black hole and trying to get away from the Cybermen, but doing it successfully thus far. And Bill back on Earth after, she had her fun with Heather, and then Heather made her back into a human, and then they're on a break or some sort, but it was hilarious. It also was strangely emotional. I love Pearl Mackie. I love that character. I love that performance. And there's something so just powerful about it. And then her going into the whole, wearing, there was a part where she mentioned that, everyone's wearing masks now and that everyone's also marching. When this came out in June, this was when everything, considering, George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter protests were really kind of igniting at that moment. So, and again, that's a really good way of, tying it in with, Bill's character and who she is. That it was also just kind of sweet because I'm happy that, and again, canon is what you make of it. You can have your own head canon, whether or not you think this is actual happened, whatever. But it was actually so refreshing to me. And it made me emotional, and I don't want to be that guy. I really don't want to be that guy, and I'm going to be saying that, I think, throughout most of these stories, I feel, and I always end up being on the opposite end of these things. At least these days, it feels like. I love the idea of a woman doctor, and I'm 110% behind that. So is David. Mm-hmm. I think Jodie Whittaker in Series 12 give a really strong performance, much stronger than in Series 11. And I think David hasn't finished the series, but thus far I think he can agree with that sentiment. But for whatever, we're not going to get into a Series 12 here, because it's just, we're not there yet. And there is an upcoming holiday special, I think, in the 1st of January. And maybe we'll be talking about Series 12 at that point, maybe, as a review, because we haven't done that quite yet. But, I think I still watch the show. I'll just say this is what I currently feel about the series. I mentioned that I finished my season 10 rewatch after watching the whole 10 seasons. I haven't gone back and bothered to start season 11. And then also this latest piece with Bill and Nardole, written by Stephen Moffat, that's the most Doctor Who has felt like what I love Doctor Who to be since 2017. And I feel shitty saying that because I love this show and I wanted to succeed. And I also have to be like cautious about it because like a lot of people hate this show for other let's just say, malevolent reasons, that, are fucking stupid and foolish and whatever. But yeah, it moved me. It made me feel something. Remember these words for the Mandalorian. But basically that's the point here. So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now, but I won't stick on that horse too long. I've also been reacquainting myself with the Muppets. As some of you may know, we've been doing Muppet Month on the Fantasy Fair podcast. We have 2 episodes already up on there, and we have another one coming up with the 2011 Muppet movie, and then also Muppets Most Wanted. I just finished that the last 2 nights. And I stand by what I said a few weeks ago when I stated that they were the best, some of the best live action movies that the Disney studio has made in the last 2 decades. They are so good and so consistent. And it's that rare Disney live action movie where they actually capture the magic of what those characters were, and they deliver, in some cases, some of the best content yet. I don't know what happened there with those movies. And keep in mind that the movies were directed by James Bobbin, who also later on directed the very poorly reviewed Alice Through the Looking Glass. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know. So like also at the Disney studio, but no, I love those movies. I was watching Muppets Most Wanted last night, and I was just laughing so hard. I was like, man, this is really up my alley. I can't wait to hear what Alexis has to say of those movies, because she so far has been very entertained, at least, by the classic Muppet movies, with the Muppet movie and Muppets, The Great Muppet Caper in particular. So yeah, do you have any history of Muppets, David?
Nope.
Okay.
I was an Elmo child, so.
I see. Well, so was Kyle. So, although he apparently got offended when I seemingly suggested that Elmo was like the face of the Sesame Street, but apparently that's Big Bird. I was like, okay.
Really?
Yeah. Listen to the episode, because Big Bird was around way before Elmo came into the picture. Oh. I did not know that. I know that. I just assumed he's always been around.
Yeah,
but that
same.
wasn't the case.
I'm mostly just seen like the Elmo movies. The most memorable one is, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like he loses his blankie. That's the one that I always rewatched as a kid. But yeah,
I don't remember the Elmo movies. I'm not sure if I ever really got into Sesame Street. I was more of Barney. That was kind of my thing.
Oh yeah, I watched that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. And then, Netflix, The Crown. Nice. Alexis, oh my God, really got me. Well, I mean, I had been a previous fan of The Crown back in 2016. So many years ago. Again, it's like one of those things where, for whatever reason, I finished the season, and there was no season 2 at that point. But then all these years later, there's 3 more seasons, and so like, man, I gotta go back and watch this, because we announced on last week's show that we're going to be doing a Crown recap series here on Red Spotlight in January for the 4 seasons of The Crown, and I had really liked the first season, but again, like a lot of other things that I enjoy, I can't find the time, or I just can't bring myself to actually start doing it. Like, I haven't seen Rick and Morty season 4. I haven't seen the last 2 seasons of BoJack Horseman, although I've been warned that I would kill myself if I did, so I just haven't seen that. I haven't seen
BoJack is a good reason to ignore it.
That's necessarily true. I also haven't seen the 3rd season of Daredevil, which everyone praised, but I just never did.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
No, that one's really good.
Yeah. Well, I love the show. I love the first 2 seasons, so I'm sure it's great. But I just, again, it's like it came out at a time where I was very not into that anymore. Not into the Marvel Netflix in particular anymore. But I am going to go back and watch all of these seasons at some point. But it's like it's kind of like that similar situation with The Crown, but because the fourth season came out recently, and because everyone's been talking about it and all the drama that's been happening, I had to go see it. And I'll tell you this, there are a lot of inaccuracies, which I looked up which they were. I don't care. It's a wonderful television show. It is so. The craft is top notch. The acting is top notch, and I love the writing on this show. And it is just an interesting character study because, like, you don't necessarily love these people. But you can't stop yourself from watching what they're gonna do next. Like, it has, I said this to Alexis, a similar appeal like a telenovela, a Spanish soap opera. Because it kind of is that. Yeah. Every week. All right, who's gonna get stabbed in the back this week? Who's gonna be doing the stabbing? So I assume you've seen the whole thing?
Yeah, I still haven't finished the last season.
Okay.
But yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. I enjoyed myself very much watching The Crown. And we'll be talking about it more as our next television segment for the next month. And if we don't seem as organized for the month of December, it's because we're not. Things have come up inexplicably that have really thrown a wrench into whatever plans we had. For the record, we had really no plans for December, but I mean, I did at this point hope to finish Del Toro series, but we're not there at that point yet. So we're going to do our very best to finish what we have to finish for the year. And I hope that we're going to be able to arrange one final episode of 2020 where we can have the whole panel and just, reflect on the year that was. I hope, but, a lot of things have happened. And also it's the holidays and there's holiday shopping and it's a lot. It's kind of a lot. So yeah, keep an eye out for our shows every Sunday and sometimes on Thursday. There's your plug of a show you're already listening to. So let's get into it. Our first official story, which is basically a continuation of what last week's episode ended up on. I don't know if you listened to our commentary last week, David, with Alexis. Okay. So we're talking about HBO Max, and we're talking about Warner Media's decision. And I want to clarify a couple of things here, because I've been seeing so much misinformation in a lot of the media covering this. I feel, I feel it is very inaccurate to say that this decision was made by the movie studio Warner Brothers. I feel it needs to be repeated that the movie studio was recently reshuffled as part of a larger merger between two telecommunication companies, AT&T and Time Warner. And a new company was formed out of that merger and called Warner Media. And so it's important, I feel, to clarify the distinction there. And as I will mention, I have some stuff here to read when we get to the drama in all of this, but the head of the Warner Brother movie studio is not necessarily the person who decided this. In fact, he's not the person who made this decision. It was the people at Warner Media who made this unilateral decision. And I feel that's very relevant. Not to say that, of course, I'm defending the studio, but this is kind of my thing of just always being against mergers. This is why mergers shouldn't happen. Hey, just take a hint, people. And I think that needs to be, reported on more. That way people understand. how it was that this decision was not just made, but how the people who made the decision were put in the power of making that decision in the first place. Anyway, you listened to our commentary last week. What are your thoughts about, or I guess the best way I want to go at it is, what did you think first when you read this news?
It was pretty surprising to hear that they made this decision. I knew, but right away I knew, like, okay, there's gonna be a bunch of videos, people saying cinema is dead, theaters are dead, or not cinema, theaters are dead, and all that. And for me, I don't think it's gonna die out or anything. It could just be me thinking positive, who knows? But I've always like thought of this, but going to see a movie in the theaters, it's always an experience. You know, it's just something that you cannot replicate in your own home. Even when, we have a projector of our own. When we do it in our garage, we invite people. Like, it's fun, but it's more better having actual popcorn with you and actually have people who are. For me, I kind of like it when people like really react to movies. Obviously not talk to movies, but like, they can cheer, they can laugh and all that. Like that's the fun part of movie theaters. So is there going to be maybe a lot of shutdowns? Possibly, I don't know. I just know there's going to be some incredible change in the theater business. And even with the studio business, like, they cannot expect to make, even $500 million in the box office anymore. I really can't see that,
If this is what they're going to do from now on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if they're going to do that from now on. Like, they can't expect really big numbers at all. And I think for that I'm okay with, because I honestly feel like trying to hit that $1 billion goal, it's kind of it is kind of ruining movies, for me at least.
No, yeah, and we've been talking about that. It's an arbitrary goal, and it's kind of the thing that every studio wants, $1 billion franchise. But yeah, it's kind of homogenizing the quality of the content and we've had so many episodes documenting that for sure. But one thing I want people to understand, and again, this isn't necessarily being communicated across all that much, and that is, number one, the streaming services that Disney or Warner Brothers have, or any other studio, for all of the positive headlines of how many subscribers they have, like Disney, for example, let's say they have like 75 million subscribers. What that people should understand, that doesn't necessarily translate to a profit. They're putting all of this, they're hauling ass basically around these streaming services, but they're not going to start making any real money for the company until years down the line. Mm-hmm. And the reason why all of this reshuffling is going toward them is because of the coronavirus pandemic and the fact that it has closed movie theaters, and that there is, even if they were open, there was and is no business at the moment for even having theatrical releases, while the temporary, as long as it is felt, predicament has given us. Yes, streaming is, whatever you want to say, the future. Yes, some people are saying like die or evolve with the times or whatever, but these are just blanket statements, and there's not enough nuance, I feel, being contributed to the conversation about what this actually means, right? Mm-hmm. Also, and again, this is another key point: Godzilla vs. Kong, Wonder Woman 84, The Suicide Squad. For the fans who are happy about this, fine, you're happy, but that people seem to be under the impression that means that, we're going to keep getting movies on that high budget level and movies that look as good as that from now on to the end of time, but now on streaming, so it's better for us. That is a delusion that the media, unfortunately, has not been able to successfully to bash out of your head. That is never going to happen. Why? Because it took a pandemic for the studios to even consider putting these kind of movies on streaming services.
Not just the pandemic, but the horrible box office of Tenet.
Yes, and we'll get to him. Don't worry, we'll get to him.
Yes, it really was that movie that, like, what was it? Icing out
fucked
the cake.
Everything.
Yeah,
yeah, it really did, and we'll and some people also want to push back against that idea, and I'll push back against that notion. No, it very much contributed to where we are right now, and we'll get to Nolan. Don't worry, I have something special planned for him. We're not through this yet. I'm just trying to set this up, and I'm trying to really catch people up as quickly as I can, and to make people understand at the moment a lot of things that aren't being properly communicated for this kind of earth-shattering news, you know? And so with that being said, we have to go to the other point that you were making, and that was about movie theaters going away. And that's another thing that I keep coming across, where everyone keeps saying the same shit. This is it. Movie theaters are dead. It's over. Let's move on. I keep hearing this. And like we're throwing in the towel. But again, and this tied back into the previous thing. It's not just that we as fans of movies aren't going to get the high budget blockbusters on streaming if movie theaters did go away. There would be no reason for the studios to commit that much money to movies. Because that's just throwing money away, and just be aware of this, that 17 movies that Warner Brothers has decided to put on the streaming service, that is lighting millions and billions of dollars on fire. Think of that scene from The Dark Knight where the Joker is just lighting all this money on fire. That's what it is. Why they made that decision, the decision to basically burn that money, was for short-term gain in the streaming wars, which, as Christopher Nolan put it, and he was correct in this case, is fledging. You know, from the streaming service perspectives, the Warner Brothers HBO Max has had a horrible launch and a terrible reputation. It was a misfire in communication all around that no one really has HBO Max, which is why they made the decision to put Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max to entice people, and furthermore, why they're putting all of these 17 movies on there to get you to actually give a shit about that streaming service, even though they won't be on the streaming service for all the time. They say that these 17 movies are going to have 30 days, and then that's it. Then they're going to go away, and they're going to go through digital and then home video or whatever have you, and the whole whatever. But back to the whole thing about movie theaters are dead. It has been a horrible year for the exhibitors. It has been probably the worst year, and it has been a horrible wake-up call as it has been for just about every industry in this business, unless you're fast food. And I mean any business, not just like the movie business. But I didn't get that feeling that this was the end forever. Even some of the people who are saying the movies are dead, well, not every movie theater is going to go away. No. This very much, let's say you're on the side of like, you think I still maintain that movie theaters are going to stay because there is so much money to be off of them. And I think when things go back to a normal of some sort, you're going to see that business come back. You're going to see that business come back. Yeah. And then you're going to see what, and that's why we should mention, we haven't obviously had the confirmation yet, because that is going to be happening in the day after this recording, and we'll see if I get my words. But at this hour, the New York Times, not Grace Randolph, for some of you that want to like, because you know she likes to, they like to kill her on Twitter. The New York Times is reporting that Disney is going to announce that Black Widow is going to stay as a theatrical release.
Okay.
Right. Not, as others would suspect, Disney Plus or Premium Access. I still think it's a possibility, if not a likelihood, Black Widow goes to Premiere Access. But they may not have made that decision yet.
Mm-hmm.
They may, and I think they could be telegraphing the fear and the rage that Warner Brothers got, and they may say, well, at the moment, we can still change our minds, but we're going to go ahead and wait and see how things are in May. Because you know what? In coronavirus, here in California at least, we're getting the Pfizer vaccine later this month. The Moderna vaccine, the governor just confirmed, is coming very soon in the next few weeks. So like the vaccines are beginning to be rolled out. That being said, and I've heard very different things on this, whether it be in April or May or in June, that is the time period in which most experts believe the vaccinations, whether it be Pfizer or Moderna, are going to be accessible to the main public. So if we follow that train of logic, that's cutting it close, mind you, because I think Black Widow falls dead in the center of that. They could make a decision at that point. You know what? It's still too risky, so we'll put this on Disney Plus. But so far, all I know is what the New York Times is reporting, and that Disney is going to say in their investor meeting that Black Widow was going to stay the course as a theatrical release. And furthermore, that they're not going to follow what Warner Brothers did with this decision. So I think that's evidence enough that I don't think Disney was ever against theaters. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with Mulan got a lot of attention, but that was for those were reasons that were understandable, and that was an experiment that happened. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Disney has any interest in the movie-going business to go away, because it is their business. Yeah. That is basically, and I tell you, and this is why also we should have more scrutiny on Warner Media and Comcast Universal, because look, AT&T and Comcast are telecommunications companies that acquire those studios through mergers. They don't necessarily need the movie-going business the way Disney needs it. So that's why Universal earlier this year had that deal with AMC Theaters, and that's why Warner Media is going the way that they're going. It's important that people are aware of this. That way they understand the motivations and why it is that certain studios are making certain decisions. Also, I will just say, I have a high capacity of doubt as to how successful these 17 movies are going to be in terms of supercharging HBO Max. I think they're going to be successful in getting it on the map and getting the people to actually know what the fuck it is. In some of these movies, I think Wonder Woman and the Suicide Squad and The Matrix, I believe The Matrix, and maybe also Godzilla vs. Kong, I think those are going to be the biggest ones of them all. It's like 4 or 5, and they're going to be huge events. But there's also a lot of movies on there like Tom and Jerry and Mortal Kombat and yada 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 that I'm like, I don't know how much that's going to move the needle, that don't already have HBO Max. Like, who's really going to subscribe for Tom and Jerry? Yeah. Especially if later on it's going to get off of HBO Max and it's going to go, to iTunes or some other place. Or so that's why I'm both skeptical of how successful this is really going to be for them in terms of where HBO Max will be. But I also am looking at the ground. I'm looking at what Disney is thinking and what they're looking at right now. I'm also looking at the timeline of these vaccines or coronavirus. I think we're going to know a lot more by the middle or the late summer of 2021, that's for sure. But if the vaccines are as effective as they have, been made out to believe, there is a good chance that by the late summer of 2021, moviegoing can return. That's a good possibility of happening. And I would also say that there's a good chance also that, considering what pressure is applied, Warner Media might decide, okay, maybe not all 17 movies, maybe some of these movies we'll pull back and save, considering where pressure is at right now. Mm-hmm. What do you think of all of the stuff? I think it may have seemed scattered to some people. Did all that make sense to you? What do you think of how I feel about it?
It made complete sense. All these studios they're gonna have to like think of many different ways to like get their money back somehow, basically. And for Disney to what they did with Mulan, they really fucked up on that. First of all, the whole drama of the making of the movie, but then also like
the movie itself was bad.
The movie is, I mean, before we knew how bad it was going to be.
Right.
You know, it was just the drama behind it, but then also they were like, oh, in 6 months you can get it for free. And it's like, no, you do know not a lot of people care about your live action movies, right? Why would you say that? And so like it's the announcement. It's like they're looking for a quick buck and don't think of the future. Both Warner Brothers and Disney, you know?
Disney.
And so with Warner Brothers, like, cool, you're putting it on streaming service. Yes, that's probably going to get some people's attentions, maybe a lot, who knows? And it's good for them to put it also in the theaters. If it's safe for you to go to the theaters, go for it. For me, at least, I wish I could see Wonder Woman in theaters, but I'm still not comfortable going.
You will have the option.
Yeah,
I assume your Harkins will be open, and I assume the option will be there, but it's not advised at all to do it.
Yeah.
And also for most people who are apparently brain dead when it comes to handling Corona, no offense to the, American people, but look at the numbers. I think that's a fair assumption to make. But let's just look at convenience. Why would you go drive to a theater when you can just watch it on HBO Max?
Well, I mean, again, for me at least, I would go. I wish I could go to a theater because I love the theater experience.
We're the people that we would, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I could watch it at home, and I might. But if it weren't a pandemic, I would go to the theater because that's just what we do.
Yeah. But then to also talk about Warner Brothers and like just their whole quick buck thing, I find it ridiculous though to just kind of take the movie out of HBO Max after who knows how many days, 30 days or something.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. I feel like it'll just be easier from the beginning to just have people pay for it. Not like $30 like Mulan, but maybe, I don't know, I would probably pay $15 to $20. And I think that's fine, again, because a lot of people share their streaming service to others. And so it's just, it seems like a good deal. But yeah, okay, what else were we talking about? Yeah. So in terms of the vaccines, in terms of theaters dying, yeah, you made a really good point of the vaccines coming out by May or June. Yeah, it's not gonna die out. Again, I feel like there's way too many people who love the movie theater experience still, who wholeheartedly believe that it will keep going, who want it to keep going, and we just gotta keep track of the virus. People like, come on, just make an effort of putting on a mask, staying away from others, and when a vaccine comes out, just forget everything you've ever believed of the vaccines. Take it.
I think it's important to remind ourselves that, and I don't mean to cut you off there, David,
that's
but
fine.
What you said there was so important. It's important to remind ourselves as Americans that live in this country that this is our country, and we have to acknowledge the embarrassment and the failure we have been with dealing with this pandemic. Every day on Twitter, I am seeing pictures of concerts and celebrations from other parts of the world that have dampened down and have controlled the spread of coronavirus. And yet we are the complete opposite of it. We're at uncontrollable spread everywhere in the country. Everywhere in the country. And yet a lot of us seemingly are just living in this fantasy world. Honestly, like I watch a lot, and I think a lot of us do watch a lot of Disney vloggers. and they make really great content. But I am amazed at how, with all due respect, oblivious they are to the gravity of the situation. Like just this past week, they had, closed outdoor dining at Downtown Disney. I would argue that should have never been reopened in the first place. Mm-hmm. Just this last week, we had a new 3-week shutdown in the state of California. And while everybody is complaining about the governor, I'll tell you what I'm upset at the governor of. I'm upset that he's not being more strict with his regulations. I'm upset that he still allows outdoor dining at a lower capacity. I feel, and I have nothing to back this up, although I've seen some stuff, but I feel like a lot of what's driving this may be outdoor dining, and it may be also, well, you know what? Actually, I take that back. I had a conversation with Peter and Alexis the other day, and I think at least in our community, what I feel is driving this is family gatherings. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And people are not taking that seriously. They're just getting the Thanksgiving numbers, and they're horrible. Obviously, here we are 2 weeks later. But still, the thing is, why are people choosing to be angry at the governor for only trying to save your life? Meanwhile, why do you show no concern over the fact that every region in the state of California has less than a 15% capacity in their ICU units? That's a fucking disaster. That merits, national outcry. And yet, here we are. And so, we have to remind ourselves, even though a lot of these people will easily forget because they never took it seriously to begin with, but we have to remind ourselves that the reason we are still living with this pandemic is because we as a people, we as a country, have failed to unite behind this. Sorry, you were saying about the vaccines or the spread of it?
No, that's what I really need to say.
Okay. And that's why it also makes it fucking difficult to predict when exactly in 2021, God willing, we can get back to normalcy of some sort. We can go back and go to the movies without risking ourselves. Mm-hmm. I want to add more to what I was saying about the New York Times report, if I may, because, and again, Disney will make this announcement, and it may end up being false by the time this particular podcast is debuted on Sunday, as it usually is. But basically, what the New York Times is reporting is that Disney is going to have a unique 3-pronged approach in terms of how they're going to release the movies they have for the following year. So this comes from them. Other movies will take the Mulan route and arrive on Disney Plus as premium offerings. I want to stop right there. I don't expect them to do $30 again. Mm-hmm. I do think they're going to do another premium access, but I think they should at least cut that in half. Yeah. Or maybe $20. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we've got something here in terms of the premier access strategy. Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney, told analysts on a recent conference call. There's going to be a role for it strategically with our portfolio of offerings. That's what he says. And then back to the Times report. And some of Disney's biggest movies will continue to receive exclusive run in theaters before arriving on the company's streaming services. For instance, contrary to widespread speculation, Black Widow, a much anticipated Marvel spectacle, will remain on Disney's theatrical release calendar for May 7th. The people with knowledge of the presentation said. So this is what we have now, at least based on what I'm seeing here, the 3-pronged approach. Either, in the case of Soul, the movie will go straight to Disney Plus as part of your subscription, or option 2, it will come to Disney Plus, but with a premium access that you have to pay for to watch that movie, or it's going to go to theaters. And that is really interesting. And it is a complete contrast for how Warner Brothers is handling it. Mm-hmm. And it also, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just pretty much it highlights where we are. It's like Disney, they always want to have the best of both worlds, right? They want to make sure that they do enough to sustain the theater going business however they can, but they also need to put the focus on Disney Plus, because that's all that's making money for the company at the moment, really. Because of course there are the theme parks, of which we had mentioned, and they're not doing the best right now. Unless you're in Florida, where the governor could not give a shit about you at all. By the way, they closed, I think, Paris and Hong Kong. I think I read recently. So there we are again with that situation with the Disney parks. So what do you think about Disney's approach in considering how it differs from Warner Brothers?
I mean, I don't know about Black Widow staying with its theater release. I think they should stick by it, just because I feel like that's one of the biggest movies that they're probably going to release. And I don't mind them hopefully taking a chance that theaters can be back to normal. I think that's fine. But what I'm mostly hoping for is that they just learn from their past mistake with Mulan and just kind of like fix whatever they've done. Because again, Disney fans, like, whatever Disney says, like company says, Disney fans will like go all in for it, you know? Like they have the means to make their money back somehow.
Right.
But they just keep making stupid decisions, really, honestly. Wait, can you explain to me with Soul again? Is it gonna be released? Do you have to pay for it, or is it gonna be free?
No.
Okay.
No, it's included with your subscription.
Okay. See, that one's still like. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind free stuff and shit, but I still think they should have taken the chance of at least the $15 to $20 pay for it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot. Like Christmas Day is gonna be wild, and look, I would say that there's a good chance Soul, I think, has more traction than Wonder Woman, only because Disney Plus has 75 million subscribers. HBO Max does not. I think at most it has 25 tops million subscribers. So I think that's gonna be a big difference. And Soul coming on Christmas Day, families, I think Soul's going to be a big hit. But I also do think Wonder Woman's going to be a big hit. So in case people were thinking about that. With Soul and the decision to put that there, it's tough, right? Because I think if you were to look at how Pixar movies perform and how Onward being the exception, Onward did not get a fair shake. It wasn't doing well before, but I mean, it didn't get a chance to finish its run because everything was shut down in March. But I think reasonably, you could have expected Soul to have made anywhere between $600 to $700 million worldwide. If it was really well received, it would have been maybe even bigger than that. But for an original Pixar movie, I think 600 to 700 million would be the safe bet. They're not going to make obviously that money back at all, and they knew that when they made the decision to put it on Disney Plus. There is no outcome in which these movies make their money back. There just isn't at all. The Premier Access, I think they saw how much backlash they got from that, so they didn't want to do it this time. But it seems like they're preparing a revamped version of it for the next couple of releases, whichever one it has to be. And I think Black Widow would be one of those. Let me say this in terms of what I think are the options of what could happen, in particular with Black Widow. Because this New York Times report flies in the face of so much on the contrary that we've been hearing. And they do mention this in the reporting that we've been hearing. Everyone's saying, oh yeah, they're going to announce Black Widow, Disney Plus. That's the end of it. We even saw a supposed leaked trailer presentation that said that Black Widow would be doing a premium access thing on Disney Plus. I think the options are this. I think at the moment they might be using Black Widow and, to save face and to be the supporter of the movie business. That would be a hell of a difference to stick it to Warner Brothers. But I think likely what is to happen is the decision will become clear the closer and closer we get to April and May. If we get to April and things are still dicey, then what is likely to happen is Disney. I think the likeliest situation at that point is that Disney just says, okay, $25, $20, Black Widow, Disney Plus. It's enough time for waiting. Mm-hmm. Or they could push it to August, late August. That could give them a lot more wiggle room if they really want to commit to theatrical. Mm-hmm. And it would be, I think, that would be the biggest release at that point, I think, because a lot of Warner Brothers movies are not. So much is dependent on the first couple of months of 2021, and we don't know how that's going to play out. And there are already so many movies that are in 2021 in the early months that are either going to move later into the year or the following year. It's just impossible to know. But I think the likeliest, either it does come out in May, either it gets pushed back to August for a big theatrical, like, let's say they use it in late August as like, this is the real return of the movies with Black Widow. Or they say, you know what, we'll cut our losses. We'll do May, but we'll do it on Disney Plus with a premium access. They
could possibly look at the numbers. I can't remember the release dates, but all the Warner Brothers movies coming out like early 2021, I can't remember all the release dates, but they could look at those numbers, and once they see like maybe some doing really well, they could stick with the May release. But once they, I don't know, let's say, what is it, March or early April, if they don't like the numbers, just premium or put it another date. But I feel like I think the safest bet is just go premium and theaters, because even with the vaccine, like, I still don't think we're gonna get like very high numbers with movie theaters box office.
Yeah, it's gonna take time, and then also this should be, I feel, common knowledge. A vaccine does not make you invincible.
Yeah,
mask wearing is not gonna go away. I'll tell you that. A mask is actually more effective than a vaccine. Well, no, that's not true. Mm-hmm. In some cases, it can be the most effective thing, depending on what mask you're wearing, I should say, and where you are and how many people you're with. But we're going to need two things. We're going to need our masks, and we're going to need the vaccine. That's not going to go away. The masks, don't expect that to go away. I'm hoping social distancing can be lifted some, but we'll see. But you're right, David. It's going to be interesting to see where all of this is, because, oh my goodness, before I lose my train of thought, there's so much in my head. We should mention at the moment, right? Over 75% of movie theaters are closed. Regal Cinema as a whole, they're closed. Only 18% of movie theaters, as done by a recent survey, feel comfortable going to the movies right now. 18%. That means 72% are not comfortable going to the movies right now. And I don't think that's likely to change in January, February, or March, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Only because of how close in proximity they are to our current situation. And considering that things are going worse and worse and worse, we've known for months now, but the current projections are by the end of January, 400,000 people would have died. We're quickly approaching 300,000 dead. I think the last number I checked was 286,000 dead. And we lost 3,000 people in just one day today. And we might be reaching an average of 3,000 people dying a day, where it used to be only 1,000 people dying a day. That's to say nothing, of course, of the infection. So, like, a lot of this is just not unknowable, and we're just trying to figure out. We're just trying to guess at this point, because that's all we can do. But you're right. I think you have some good instincts there as well. But I also, like, I would, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is that, like, when it comes to Spider-Man, that's going to come out in December. And you would think at that point things would be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd think.
Mm.
You can't really be sure of anything. But
Yeah.
I think you and I are on the same page that, like, this is going to be turbulent. But I think movie theaters are going to come out okay on this side. Maybe not okay, but I think they'll be alive somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just not something I think that we're ready to give up.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So shall we get to the drama?
Yes.
So I was talking with Peter and with Alexis, and I had to tell them, when we talked about this last week on the show, I don't know why I didn't see this coming. I guess you just assumed that they would have let their people know,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to be doing this. I think, but I guess, silly me for thinking that people are acting in goodwill, right? Because 2020 has clearly been on the contrary of that. So, of course, I am referring to all of the multiple partners that the Warner Brother movie studio works with, along with their talent. And it's funny how a lot of this that I'm about to read happened in the course of just one day, up and decided to push back and push back hard on this decision. Let me go ahead. I have the Hollywood Reporter in front of me here, and I'm going to do some extensive reading. That way people who are not aware of what I'm referring to have an opportunity to know, to have some context here. All right, so here it is. To many insiders, Warner Media's blindsiding of talent and their reps with news that it would send 17 films directly to HBO Max in 2021 felt like an insult. For many in the movie business, producers, directors, stars, and the representatives, December 3rd, 2020, which was when they announced this, is a day that will live in infamy. This is a upcoming quote here by Christopher Nolan. I told you we'd get to him. Don't worry, we'll still get to him. But this is funny what he says. Some of our industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out they were working for the worst streaming service. Filmmaker Christopher Nolan, whose relationship with Warner's dates back to Insomnia in 2002, said in a statement. Ouch. I want to stop right there and just quickly say that, I think Nolan is an ego that we shouldn't inflate. We shouldn't, I guess, encourage because, to my sensibilities and to many of ours on Red Spotlight, we felt that he led the movement for people to endanger themselves earlier this year, and that was dangerous, and we criticized him for that. But that being said, I will say it is refreshing to have a director not have to pussyfoot around how he feels and fucking hit below the belt at his home movie studio. I haven't seen a revolt like this since Dave Bautista was attacking Disney for firing James Gunn. And this is just so, we never see this, but it's so fun. And it also feels a little good because, they fucked up in a big way, as I'm about to read right here. Surprisingly to some in the industry, the idea, I'm sorry, this is the wrong paragraph I have here. This is going to happen inevitably. Let me see with more. The instant response in Hollywood was outrage and a massive girding for battle. Warner's has made a grave mistake, says one top talent agent. Never have this many people been this upset with one entity. Like others, he had spent much of the day dealing with calls from stunned and angry clients. And that swooshing sound you hear? It's the lawyers stopping their blades as they prepare for battle. The Warner's was self-dealing and shifting these movies to its own streamer, perhaps, or that the company acted in bad faith. Some talent reps say the decision affects not only profit participants, but others who have worked on films, as the move might affect residual payments. Yikes. The Warner's move poses big, maybe even existential questions. How do theaters survive this supposedly one-time excuse by the pandemic move? Genies are hard to put back Genies are hard to put back in the bottle, and no one believes Warner's intended this to be temporary anyway. What damage will be done to exhibitors? There's a whole bunch of questions. This was funny here. And will Warner's face serious backlash from important producers, filmmakers, guilds, and on-screen talent? Clearly, the answer is yes. I think one person said here, one agent, Warner's was the quintessentially talent-friendly, filmmaker-friendly studio. Now, Warner's isn't the first place, second place, or third place you want to go to. Oh my goodness. This is bad. Holy crap. By the weekend following the announcement, Toby Emmerich, who's in charge of the studio, was calling important filmmakers with projects set for 2022 to assure them that their movies wouldn't be dropped on the streaming service without warning. As if anyone would believe he had any control over the situation, says one producer with a major Warner property. Toby probably had a really bad weekend. Not that I feel bad for him, says one agent. According to a source, Emmerich tried to soothe Into the Heights director John M. Chu by pointing out that the movie was still getting a global theatrical release. Quick side note, by the way, that this also hasn't been talked about enough. HBO Max is only available in America. Okay. What happens to the international releases of these movies? If HBO Max isn't available anywhere else besides the US? That's kind of important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is bad. And it really just goes on to say, somebody hilariously here, by the way, referred to Warner Brothers as now former brothers. People are really going at it.
Yeah.
Sources say even director James Gunn was not pleased with the studio. I also heard people like, Lin-Manuel Miranda was upset. And many others, I'm sure, were upset at Denis Villeneuve, especially with Dune. That was supposed to be a big fucking release, and that maybe that to me may be the biggest disappointment that we're not gonna be able to. I hope by the time we can get see Dune in a theater, but that's a big fucking movie. And this is actually a pretty important part here. Much of this outrage will surely be mitigated if Warner Media is prepared to write big checks to all the profit participants in the films that have been moved. Keep in mind, profit participants, the acting talent, the directing talent. It's critical for them at the highest level to make this right with the talent. But agents say the guidance that's been provided so far suggests that the company isn't planning to offer what is now called Wonder Woman money, in honor of the rich deal the studio gave profit participants Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins in Wonder Woman 1984 when the film moved to HBO Max. This is the distinction here, right? So the reason why you didn't hear Patty Jenkins or Gal Gadot scream about this is because they were paid. They were talked to about this. They were consulted. They were informed. They were part of the conversation, and they arrived at a deal where the movie would go to streaming with a simultaneous run on theaters, but the back pay that the talent was owed was paid and then some by Warner Media. That didn't happen with any of the talent on these 17 movies. So that's why you had people like Keanu Reeves and Will Smith's representatives bitching about what the fuck here. Why did Gal Gadot get this money paid back and we didn't even get consulted? I didn't even get called about this. So you have on that level the talent erupting. You have Nolan, who is one of your most prized directors, basically hitting you in the balls. At the same time, Legendary Entertainment, which is a production company that Warner Brothers makes movies with and collaborates with them, especially with upcoming films Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune, they were threatening to sue the other day because they weren't consulted and because they, Legendary Entertainment, put up most of the money to fund those movies, Dune and Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Kong. The Directors Guild of America, which mostly everybody is a part of, unless you're George Lucas. It's a long, funny story about that. Threatened a boycott of the Warner Brothers movie studio. You have your talent in revolt. You have the threat of lawsuits, and you have a threat of a boycott. How did they not see this coming? How did we not see this coming?
I think you said it, like, we just assumed they informed everyone about this and gave them something in return. Like, I don't know how deals work in the movie business, but you gotta please everyone who works in whatever project you're working on. So it just makes no sense that they're in this situation at all. And honestly, the easy fix would be to just pay off your talent and the other studios, but they're all in this shitty situation that it can't really be done. So I honestly don't know what the heck they can do to fix all this, really. Unless they just forget about putting it in theaters and HBO Max, but then that's just screwing themselves even more. In terms of what Christopher Nolan was saying, look,
real quick, David, I want to say here, because I found more information about this. Legendary financed 75% of Godzilla vs. Kong.
Mm.
And they weren't consulted about what's going to happen to the movie they paid for. We shouldn't be laughing, but it's kind of funny, though. How stupid can you be?
Yeah. Especially, what's going to happen if, once it does release and, it's going to make freaking, I don't know.
Nothing.
How much did Tenet make?
I got to $350 million worldwide.
350? Okay.
It is. It's difficult to say. It wasn't, I think, a success. It's a success in terms of pandemic money, but if there wasn't a pandemic, that would have made easily 750 worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference for you of how different it would be.
Yeah. Wow. So if it made that, and then they're screwed, man. Really, even that with all that, if the rest of the movies made that much, I don't think it's enough to pay off all of who they have to pay off. They're really, really screwed in this. But again, going back to Christopher Nolan, he's a great director and all. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But honestly, fuck your opinion on this. You are literally the reason why they made this decision. Was it dumb of them to not consult everyone else? Yes, but you put them in this situation.
Yeah, there's so much to say about that. I want real quick. It also says here in the report that it's also worth noting that sources say Warner Media insiders have been hoping Disney will follow its lead and shift its entire slate to streaming. Well, according to the New York Times, that's not going to happen. So you can toss that hope out the window. I guess to me, they made a big fucking mess of this, but the easy way to get this to quiet down is to pay the talent for those 17 movies the way that they paid Wonder Woman 1984.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't do that, oh my god. holy shit, things are going to get ugly. And they already have gotten ugly pretty fucking quickly. Just as the course of the story goes. And then to Christopher Nolan. To Warner Brothers, to AMC Theaters, and in many ways to the media, the film media, I say fuck off. Because I think all of you, in many ways, are culpable for this happening, right? So Warner Brothers let themselves be pushed by Christopher Nolan to use the Tenet movie as a launching pad to get, like the welcome back tour for movie theaters. That was also being pushed heavily by AMC and everybody else. Like, all of them were working in tangent with each other. And now all of them are, except Warner Brothers, because they're made this decision, but a lot of them are mad. Yes, I agree with you. It is very hypocritical for these people to be upset when it was their actions that made such a move possible to happen. That doesn't mean their critique isn't any less valid, though.
Yeah.
Because Nolan is correct when he says that the talent should have at least been consulted.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if you think Nolan was pissed now, imagine if you shouldn't have to imagine, because if he actually, I don't know, shut up, and if Tenet didn't come out, maybe this decision would have been made. Would not have been made, which is what we're saying, right? And I think people also have to remind themselves. Tenet was sold as the poster boy for the return of cinema. And all it did around the world, where in a lot of countries, maybe coronavirus is better, it did 350 million, but it didn't do great here in America. And no one saw the movie. No one is seeing any movies. I just said that only 18% of movie theater goers are going. Over 75% of them are closed. And what does that result to? It results to movies making $3 million on an opening weekend. Maybe $500,000 a week as the weeks progress. And Tenet was the movie responsible for showing to everyone in this business that it was not viable to release movies in a theater for the remainder of 2020. And in the case of Warner Brothers, it seems for the remainder of the following year as well. No one showed what a disaster it would be for your movie to bother with a theatrical run than Christopher Nolan and Tenet. And when that movie flopped the way that it did, that's when you heard all of the other studios pretty much taking whatever movies were left on this calendar year and pushing them back and pushing them back. And then we heard Disney Soul's going to Disney Plus, and then Warner Brothers made a decision to put Wonder Woman on HBO Max, and then they made this decision that we are right now. What Christopher Nolan did that's most unforgivable is not the fact that this, the irony, of course, is like he was saying that, he wanted to have his movie out in theaters at that point because it was going to save cinema. He literally accomplished the opposite, basically, if that's what he was hoping to achieve. And even worse, it may, it needlessly and recklessly endanger the lives of many of his so-called fans. Which I just don't know how you feel comfortable with that. I don't know how you feel comfortable, like, basically offering your own fans to the slaughter. It was like when earlier this year, Donald Trump was going on his COVID tour, and he was literally killing his own supporters with COVID. Like, yeah. A lot of the rage should be on Nolan, but in this case, he's a little bit useful because he is willing to say the things that no one else wants to say.
Yeah.
And it seems as if the sentiment that he feels is echoing what James Gunn is feeling, what Lin-Manuel Miranda is feeling, with others like Denis Villeneuve is feeling. So, yeah, I'm not trying to rehabilitate Nolan. I think he has really hurt his reputation and damaged his image because of what he did this year. But the point is valid. And that's the mistake that is, at the moment, costing Warner Media. Yeah, man, it's going to be really interesting to see how this thing goes, because if Warner Media doesn't fix this, well, I mean, what's to stop Denis Villeneuve, James Gunn, and Nolan from saying, "All right, peace. We'll take our business to Universal." Yeah,
it's just been an I don't know year or something. You just don't know what the fuck's gonna happen next.
Yeah. Speaking of, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen next. Well, the next thing we're talking about is Spider-Man. In particular, Spider-Man 3. In particular, a lot of the news that seems to be breaking about the fact that this movie is going to be a multiverse movie that includes, well, the official confirmation, Jamie Foxx's Electro, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, and then at some point it will be confirmed Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire from the previous iteration of live-action Spider-Man movies. And then I've seen other reports to suggest Kirsten Dunst is coming back, Emma Stone is coming back.
Daredevil.
The weird one, yeah, that's the one. The one that has Daredevil. Charlie Cox's Daredevil from the Daredevil series. Oh yeah, I remember when it was announced 1,000 years ago that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange was going to be in the movie, because I completely forgot up until just this moment.
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
I don't know. I think I've said this before, but like anything like about the news of upcoming movies, like I always just say I'll believe it when I see it. That's always how I always think with news. Now Doctor Strange being in it, I don't know if I ever get my thoughts, but like I mean, it's cool. I don't like the fact that he's supposed to be like another mentor to Spider-Man. I feel like there should be him trying to like be on his own now finally. But him bringing in the multiverse aspect of it into the movie does sound really interesting to me. With Electro and Doc Ock, it's interesting, but we don't know nothing about this movie, like what's going to be the story. This could be just a knockoff Spider-Verse movie into the Spider-Verse movie. But I don't know, like really the thing to kind of like really hype me up is to just, they go, fuck it, let's get a picture of all three Spider-Men together and on set. Like that's the only thing that's ever gonna get me to be like pretty excited for this movie.
Yeah, so are you saying that you're not necessarily convinced that this is what's going to happen? You're just waiting for the confirmation that this will happen? Because, I mean, it seems pretty likely that this is what's going to happen at this point. I want to backtrack real quick because I just saw some new information. Someone with a track record, I won't say the name, is saying that the Batman and Fantastic Beasts 3 moving to 2022 was no accident. It was so that they didn't get caught up in the 2021 HBO Max play. So I don't know what that suggests. I don't know if it means that Warner Brothers didn't want to have those movies get tangled up in that mess, or that they plan on going through a theatrical release for those two movies.
I think it makes sense for the Batman to try to stay in theatrical release.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like the most hyped up movie of all their DC slates. Fantastic Beasts, I think it's just because of the situation with Johnny Depp and recasting him. They could just kind of want to push it far ahead, maybe till people forget about what happened or something. I don't know. Yeah, I think they were just trying to push it as far as they can. Fantastic Beasts, I mean, they're trying to push it as far as they can until people kind of like calm down with the whole situation with Johnny Depp. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, back to the Spider-Man thing. I want to say that I think this is going to be a good movie. I think it's going to provide a lot of spectacle, and it's, in some ways, it might end up being a good thing in terms of how well it does in theaters. And it may, provide a show of force next December when it comes out as to how theaters can still be a viable business. And I'm sure we're going to have plenty of fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I do think it's gonna be a good movie. I really do, because I do trust those writers. They've done a great job with Homecoming and Far From Home. It's just that, like I said, with any news about movies, I believe it when I see it. But also, just kind of like, I always try to go with like the least amount of information as I can going into a movie, and just kind of like lower my expectations as much as I can.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that is coming out of this is painting a picture that I'm not necessarily that interested with. I'm sure I'll have a good time watching this in the theater, but I guess to me, what most disappoints me is I want the focus for the Marvel movies going forward to be less about a gimmick and spectacle and shooting for something great. Like, good isn't necessarily good enough for me anymore. I want something special. I want the excitement and the ingenuity that you're seeing with the Batman, that you're seeing with the Suicide Squad. You're seeing none of that in Marvel. It just seems to be like you're just backtracking. No, I'm sorry. You're doubling down on more of the same. And you just found another gimmick. And while it's going to work, it's going to get people excited about it. I want them to reach for something higher with a Spider-Man movie. I want them to attempt and reach something like Logan level or Spider-Man 2 level. And I don't think this can, because it just seems like a lazy remake of Into the Spider-Verse. And I don't want to compare it to that, but it just feels like it's going to be that. And it triggers a lot of bells for me, because Into the Spider-Verse was a beloved movie, but it didn't make that much money at the box office. Why? Because it was an animated movie. And Americans view that as a kid's medium. And essentially what Marvel is going to do is do the live action version of that, and it's going to make $1.5 billion. So a little bit of that irks me. But I also fear this could be, a symptom of something else. Like I'm seeing some takes on Twitter. Here's Josh Spiegel. My hot take: Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is such a remarkable achievement that any live-action attempt to replicate it is almost doomed to fail, simply by comparison. I have another one right here. Zach Stentz. I'm excited by the Spider-Man casting news too. I just hope the lessons Sony Marvel took from Into the Spider-Verse is people love a clever, beautifully crafted story about people that they care about, not just people love the multiverse. All the multiverse stuff in Spider-Verse was clever and delightful, but at the end of the day, I love that movie because I loved Miles Morales and his struggles. And so, like, I just feel like a lot of this is just lost when we're just getting excited over, like, this live action, this multiverse thing, and it's like, I want a Spider-Man movie to focus on this, and it is going to focus. He is going to be the main character still, and I'm sure a lot of this stuff is going to be limited to certain acts of the movie. Yeah, I don't know. I want to like this. I want to be excited about it, but I don't know. I feel like this is going to be what this is going to be, and I'm not so sure it'll be, all that great. I'm hopeful,
Mm-hmm.
I want this to be a great fucking movie. But part of me also wonders if this multiverse shtick is going to get old. It already feels kind of old. Honestly.
I don't think it will, just because I watch the CW shows, and that one they do tons and tons of crossovers through the multiverse. Right. And their last one, it was really fun seeing like their multiverse. At one point, you go to Earth 66 and you meet the guy who played Robin in the Batman 1966 TV series. And like, it was really cool. Honestly, even I didn't watch the show, really? But like, even I was kind of like, wow, that's so cool. Just like, even though it was like 5 seconds, it was so cool. And some people were pretty like happy about that. And you actually see the voice actor who played Batman be in the show too, or in the crossover, playing this evil Batman. And oh my god, it was so funny because they see him and he's playing an evil Batman, and they're like, wow, the first thing we see him in live action, and he turns in and he's evil, how dare they, and all that. And I just found it so funny because in my mind I was like, yeah, he's evil in this. That's cool. Like, we've already seen him play the good guy. Why not see him play the bad guy? And then I listened to a podcast he was on, Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, and he goes, I was actually really happy with that role. Like, I got to like really stretch my acting on this. Like, he thought the same thing that I was, and I'm like, wow, you all are like really stretching just the kind of hate you want to give, huh?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see how it is. I guess the funniest thing to me is, well, I had a conversation with Kyle earlier in the week about like how I felt, or how, well, he was asking me that he really wished that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would have gotten the opportunity to like, play with a little bit of the movies.
Yeah.
And their characters interacting. And and a little bit of like what's happening now going forward is going to always be a little bit like irksome because Kevin Feige, really, he can do whatever he wants, but like, I don't know. It just seems like, all right, Charlie Cox is going to come back, but like, what about everybody else, Yeah. But I always said, and I've always maintained, that I credit Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot for making me care less about interconnected continuity and canon, and make me appreciate more the quality of the narrative and the story you're telling above all else. And I guess that's that's kind of what's reoriented me into feeling the way that I do with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now with Marvel and Star Wars, which is basically just becoming Marvel 2.0 at this point, with all of the interconnected universe things going on. And I really love Tom Holland. I love that character, and I want him to have his own movie, and it just seems as if he's the last thing on anybody's mind because of all the stuff going. But you know what? I guess we're gonna just have to wait a year and see how it turns out, and then we'll see what happens. All right. Well, before we go, we should have one more. Disney Plus, The Mandalorian. I don't know if I need to say any more. I feel the mere mention of that causes at least 10,000 orgasms an hour, depending on who you are. At least that's the impression I get every single week. You look on Twitter and just see how an episode is revealed, how it's being received. And the same seems to happen every week with increasing intensity and with also increasing perplexity, if that's even a word, on the part of all of us here at Red Spotlight. Because, we knew this was going to be the case. We knew this is how the reaction was going to be, but it still seems as if we're just endlessly perplexed, aren't we? At what all the hubbub is about. And that's really what it is. If you love The Mandalorian, that's okay. It's fine. But I also, because it also crosses into the territory of other conversations, like when people say this is what Star Wars is all about, or Mandalorian's making Star Wars great again. I've literally heard that so many times. Or like The Mandalorian is fixing what The Last Jedi broke, or put Favreau and Filoni in charge of everything, or man, this show really shows why the sequel trilogy sucked. That really depresses me. To see that kind of point of view gain traction, because I just don't happen to agree with it. And I feel like a lot of that hubbub is kind of misguided. I feel like that's fair to say. So in particular with, I think especially the last 2 weeks have been really fucking crazy. With, how slavish the reaction has been, in particular because of two characters, right? Ahsoka Tano and Boba Fett. I haven't had the opportunity to talk about any of this with you, although from what Alexis tells me, you kind of feel along similar lines as, Peter, Alexis, and I do. What do you make of... Well, first of all, tell us how you feel about this show, and then also how you feel about the conversation around the show.
So what I feel about the show, I'm having fun with it. Like, the show is visually stunning. The action can be better. Jesus Christ. No.
Unless
the action can be better.
You read the reviews.
It's just that the thing that really, really bothers me the most about the show is the tone of it. They were clearly going for a Western vibe to the show. Now, I haven't seen a lot of Westerns, but the thing though is that if you're gonna have a character that's he's lonely, he walks this world alone, just saving people, whatever, one at a time, and that's fine. But when you do that, you need characters in each episode that you can care about. And you don't get that with The Mandalorian. You just see them briefly, but what they do is try to make these outside characters make you feel something for the main character, and that's just not what you're supposed to do when you're doing, I'm guessing, that kind of Western. Or even maybe you have another Western show where it takes place in a small place, and again, he's still doing that whole gruff, lonely sheriff who's just trying to do his job. But when you do that, again, you use the other character surrounding the main one. You're trying to get the audience to care about the other character surrounding the main one. You want the town to be safe, you want the characters to be safe, you want the characters to grow and all that, and you're just not seeing that with The Mandalorian. But the thing though is that they're going for a Western vibe, but we're going through an adventure in space. And that just doesn't blend well at all. Because if you want the audience to go, if you want to take the audience on an adventure, you need to give them a reason to like look forward to the next one. And you can't do that when the freaking main character when the main character is all he's trying to do is get rid of a child. It doesn't work at all. You know, it's like, and then, you know, there's two shows that like I kind of want to compare it to, and you might not think it's fair, but there's Futurama and Adventure Time. And the only reason why I'm putting those is because people say that Mandalorian is like a live action cartoon. With Futurama, with both shows, you literally have characters who are looking forward to the adventure. Literally, the slogan for Adventure Time is, what time is it? Adventure time, you know? And then with Futurama, you got the dumb character always going like, what? There's a planet like this, what, you can do this in the future and all that, and blah blah blah. Like, you need to get the audience excited for the next adventure. And I don't mind that the plot is moving super slow in this. Like, I don't care. Again, both shows that I mentioned, you're literally just like doing whatever, and then all of a sudden it drops like this crazy episode that either makes you feel sad or you actually like get excited about it because it has some big plot universe at stakes type of thing or something. And like I don't mind that with the Mandalorian, but you have a character who wants to be alone, basically, who just kind of doesn't care about the one character that we all care about, which is Baby Yoda. I mean, yeah, he's slowly growing attached to it, but his goal in the end is to get rid of it. and that's just the thing that bothers me. And so when people react to it going, this is the best thing Star Wars has ever made, or like the studios have ever made, I go, why? You know,
what show are you watching?
What show? Yes, like, what show are you watching? Again, the action, it's not that good, honestly. Like, especially with the last one, with the Boba Fett one. Like, yeah, sure, it was cool gadgets, kind of badass, I guess, but we don't know anything about him. Like, you know? And so, like, I'm trying to like compare it with something else. Like,
well, let me just say this. To me, the show has always felt empty and vapid and completely substance-free. In large part because the show has been kind of a failure in getting me to care about these characters, if you can even call them that. The characterization is weak, if there is at all. You don't know who these people... I mean, Alexis tells me, like, who are these people? Who even are these people? Like, and it's so crazy to me that people love these characters, and yet, like, they never say why. They never say why. And Peter made a great point about, like, Boba Fett coming back. He is completely interchangeable from the Mandalorian. They're the same character.
Mm-hmm.
They have the same qualities, the same characteristics. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And yet no one picks up on that? Ahsoka Tano, played well by Rosario Dawson. If you didn't know who she was, why would you give a shit about that character based on what you saw in that episode?
I literally saw a video today of these dudes reacting to Bo-Katan. Like, when you see her, like, when you see her face and all that, they're just like, okay, cool. And it wasn't until the face and one guy just goes, oh yeah, she's important. Like, that's all his reaction to it. And like, the rest of it, he's just shitting on the episode, by the way. So, like, that's literally what people's reaction would be when they see Ahsoka if they never saw Clone Wars or Rebels. So
yeah, it just, to me, I'm just not interested in the show. I just, like, I watch it because it's Star Wars and it's fun a little, to watch what they're gonna do and the effects and stuff like that. But it also, to me, just like, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have an identity. It just seems like it's Star Wars, the show, and we'll have a shout out to a different part of the fan base every week. And that's like seemingly enough for most people. Like this thing with Boba Fett, like he was never a character. And then they were saying that in one episode they made them love Boba more than 4 movies ever did. The movies never presented that Boba Fett person as an actual character. He was a plot device. He was there in service of the real character to the story. And yet that doesn't seem to translate. That doesn't occur to them. And to me, I just found it particularly grotesque, the sequence where Boba is murdering those troopers, because it just felt like every person that's ever wanted an R-rated Star Wars movie to happen. And it's like, that's the shit that they like. And I guess to me, it's like the reason why people really love that episode was because it was quote unquote badass. It was quote unquote gritty. It was quote unquote savage. But that's not really what Star Wars ever was. It's just what you think it should be. And yeah, it's every week we end up like approaching each other, and we end up asking each other, what is everybody else watching that we're not? Because honestly, this is like, of all the shows that I've regularly watched in the last year, this is easily at the bottom.
Yeah. And like the thing though, it's just like, this is me saying this. Like, I'm easily entertained by any type of show that I see. I'm the type of person that like does go for like that type of shit that goes, wow, that was badass. That like, or wow, this is really funny. I really like this show, even though like, again, I don't care that the plot is moving super fucking slow, or like there's barely even a plot. It's just that you're doing nothing to get me excited for the next episode. You're not doing anything to get me excited for these characters at all. You're bringing them in just for people to have a nerdgasm for an episode, and then you move on. You know? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I told you it wasn't going to be a fun conversation.
No.
It just, yeah, man, it's just, I don't get it. And it's just sad that this is what people want out of their Star Wars, and not something that's actually nuanced like The Last Jedi. But even putting that to the side, how is it that this is getting so, like, let's say the Ahsoka episode, for example. Why was that like met with so much more joy and adulation than the Clone Wars finale? Is it just because it was live action and it wasn't animation?
I mean, probably, I guess. But even then, though, like, Rosario Dawson, like, she was good in this and all that. But, like,
yeah,
she isn't, what's the,
Ashley Eckstein.
Yeah, she's not Ashley Eckstein. Like, she has an iconic voice for this character, and you just kind of see another character when you're watching The Mandalorian. I really honestly did not feel like I was watching Ahsoka Tano. And then with the action with her, I liked the bits when she was running away, like going into the fog and all that. That was cool and all, but like just something about the when she uses her lightsabers.
I just like I told Kyle, how does any of that compare to, let's say, Ahsoka crash landing or like jumping, landing on Mandalore? How does that compare to her, and Darth Maul, and him trying to recruit her? How does that compare to Rex having to turn on her because of Order 66? How does that compare to Ahsoka, taking Rex's helmet off because of how heartbroken he is of having to kill his brothers? Nothing. It doesn't. It doesn't come close.
Completely different things.
To me, the point is, I just... And people were crying about Baby Yoda. This episode was called The Tragedy. Mm-hmm. What tragedy?
Yeah. They're going to get him back. They're going to be badasses saving him. They're going to get him back. They're going to get the Darksaber back. Oh my god, that's going to be the next episode. Watch. They're going to find Bo-Katan. They're going to be like, hey, we got to team up. We're fighting the child. It's going to lead us to the Darksaber then. And that's how they're going to team up and everything. And then Bo-Katan's gonna call, and then the next episode after that, right when they're in danger, Ahsoka Tano's gonna come back, watch, and then Bo-Katan's gonna be like, "Yeah, I called her," and people are just gonna freak out again because of it. But like, you see this coming, and the thing that I want to say though, I want to ask the same questions to people who hated The Last Jedi, when the Rise of Skywalker trailer came out, they go, what the heck is this trilogy about? Please tell me. What the heck is this show about? And then, they shit on the choreography of the one with Rey and Kylo teaming up and everything. They shit on it.
Can you believe that there are people that are alive that think that was bad? Can you believe that? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm all for everybody having their own like objective opinion, whatever. But still, that's like everyone in the theater was losing their minds watching that sequence.
Mm-hmm. And at least, like, even if it was bad, it did something to distract me into thinking that it was good. The Mandalorian doesn't do that. And again, I'm easily distracted. I still watch cartoons. I was literally watching The Amazing World of Gumball today, and I'm laughing my ass off in this show. Okay, I'm literally watching... I watch just all kinds of action stuff. And, like, I'm easily entertained, but nothing of The Mandalorian does it for me.
And it's just annoying because, like, then you see, like, apparently, like, Ahsoka name dropping Grand Admiral Thrawn was like the biggest revelation of the season.
Okay. I don't fucking care. He's dead. The last time I saw him, he's dead, and I don't care if he's alive. Oh my gosh!
And then also,
I especially hated that scene in the episode where she's facing off that lady that the
magistrate.
The magistrate, like, they're face to face and everything. It's supposed to be all badass, but I'm like, I don't fucking care. You're gonna win, obviously. And it's just like it's just weird because they're building it up as if like, oh, this is the final battle. This is what we've been waiting for. We just met this person. We don't know why they're even fighting in the first place. Like, I don't know. Again, you need to get me excited for the next adventure. If you're gonna put Ahsoka Tano in this, like, give me a reason as to why I should be happy that she's here, other than just she's here. Like, if that, if the episode was just about learning Grogu's past, but also trying to like really test his Force abilities or something, I would have loved that. But no, we get this other side quest like every other episode.
Yeah. It just comes across as like people are projecting what they want to see onto it, that versus on what's actually there. Because I don't know, like I just don't see any of the things that people see in this show.
Yeah.
That being said, we're going to have another episode drop this week, and we're going to go through the exact same thing. Literally watch anything else.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and close it off there. Do you have anything else to say, David?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, well then I want to thank you for joining me today, and I also want to thank you all for listening to our conversation. It was very, I think, thorough and interesting to see how a lot of it's going to age, considering that, as I've mentioned, there will be a lot of news, assuming from Disney about what their plans are in the coming year. And yeah. So thank you all for listening so much to this week's episode. We'll be back next week as we usually do, every Sunday and sometimes on Thursday. Hopefully we'll see the return of Peter. Let's see what life has in store for us. Keep it here under our red spotlight. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, CastBox, anywhere. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.